Hello, my name is Michael Lambert, and today I want to talk a little bit about the person who looks almost certain to be our new Prime Minister, our new leader, to take us to the sunlit uplands and to the glorious future that has been forecast for such a long time for us all. But she's going to be taking over in a slightly difficult time, I think. If you look at what is happening, we're in a period of crisis unlike anything that's happened since the Second World War. We have inflation at 10% and it's forecast to go to 13%. It could well go a lot higher, which is eroding everybody's savings and so on. We have, as she says herself, the highest level of taxation for 70 years. That's taxation imposed by the government of which she was or has been a part for the last 10 years or so. Interest rates are going up and set to go up more and more. If you have any loans or you've got a mortgage, you're going to be very much squeezed by that. We know that food prices are going through the roof, and as I keep banging on about, shortages are going to become a big problem. There are going to be food shortages this year, and I think that almost more than anything else is likely to lead to social unrest. We've got the strikes, haven't we? The railways are on strike. They keep going on strike. The postmen are going to go on strike. The port of Folkestone, they're going on strike. That's the biggest container port in the country. It takes in millions and millions of pounds worth of goods every day. And there are no end of other people other unions that are likely to go on strike and be talking about it. Even nurses have talked about it. There's this quite extraordinary increase in electricity and gas prices. This is something which is certainly beyond the control of this government, although the government could do something to make it easier. We're seeing on the television every day, we're seeing in news reports of people, individuals who just say they're not going to be able to cope, they're not going to be able to feed the children, they're not going to be able to heat their houses because they simply haven't got enough money. People who are just managing at the moment, and their electricity is going up by 100-200%. Huge increases. And also you see businesses, we've seen one after another businesses being interviewed saying, there was a guy a couple of days ago saying he had 300 employees and his electricity bill had gone up something like £1 million, and he just said that would wipe out his profit, and he thought it would be difficult to see how he would be able to carry on. And there's so many businesses like that, and at a time when people haven't got any money, so they're not spending in businesses, all these increases in electricity and gas prices are going to really squeeze so many businesses. And I think you can be pretty sure that thousands and thousands of businesses are going to go under this autumn. And of course that all adds to a further stress on the public purse, because millions of workers quite possibly are going to lose their jobs, and they're all going to depend on the state, and that means a lot more of a squeeze. And then we've got water companies. They're now, it seems to be, just choosing to dump sewage as much as they like in the sea. It's caused a huge crisis. I've spoken about this before. I did say once before early in the year that if water companies could dump their sewage in the seas, then this was going to have a big economic impact upon seaside resorts. Because, for example, now, we know on the south coast there are 30 different outlets, aren't there? And Brighton, I think, is affected. Well, who's going to go to Brighton and go in the sea if you know you're going to be swimming in sewage? People aren't going to do it. What are you going to catch? There's all sorts of things you can collect. There was even a case, wasn't there, of polio last week? I'm not sure if it's related to sewage or not, but it's a huge health hazard. It's something we couldn't do when we were in the EU, but of course now we've broken free and we're able to do that. Sunak is really more or less out of it, but I think he was getting a bit desperate. So last week he came up with the idea of, going after the poor people, going for benefit claimants. It's the guy who's claiming unemployment. He's doing a few jobs, for a bit of cash on the side to try and make ends meet. They're the people they're going to go after. They're going to concentrate on them, and not to worry about all the people who got vast PPE contracts and swindled the government out of millions, sometimes hundreds of millions. Forget about all the people involved in PPE, these consultants, thousands of them at £1,000 a day, where the bosses of these big companies, these big accountancy firms, they're all paying themselves huge £1 million vouchers. Forget about them, they don't matter. Go after the poor people. Go after the little ones. They're the ones to squeeze. Do you know, I can tell you about this. This is HMRC all over. HMRC, they don't like complicated cases. They don't want to know, as I mentioned last week, they don't want to know about massive fraud by international criminals and money laundering and all the rest of it. They don't want to know about that because it's much, much easier to fine people for being late for sending in a form. If you send in a form you've got to send in forms to the company's house, you get a fine the next day if you're a day late. Same with HMRC, you're late with the tax return, automatic fine, and they'll take you to court over the fine. And so it's all this pursuing the little people, and for Sunak, I think he thought that all the Tory members who he's hoping are going to vote for him, who almost certainly aren't, that they might like the idea he's bashing the little people. Truss said the same. She wants to go for benefits claimants as well. She wants to she wants to cut taxes because cutting taxes is the way she thinks that that's the way you revive the economy. Well, that is going to help people who don't pay taxes. And doing away with the NHI increases that came in a few months ago, that is going to help people who don't pay NHI because they don't earn enough money. And both the OBR and the IFS both say that her proposals to cut tax are not realistic and that they won't work. But nonetheless, she's going to do that, and she does have a strategy for solving everything, really. I mean, it's been well thought out, obviously, and I've no doubt economists all over the world will be watching and following it. It's like Thatcher had a very deep intellectual background, and she followed a set course, agree with it or disagree with it. I mean, she knew what she was doing, and it was based on sound conclusions, whether you agree with them or not. In the case of Truss, what she's going to do is she's going to turbocharge the economy. Now, I don't know why nobody's ever thought of this before. I don't know what it involves, but she's going to turbocharge it, and so I mean that should make everything okay, I think. At the same time, she's going to unleash businesses. She's going to unleash. I don't know what leashes they've been on until now. I know that when we were in the EU, we were shackled. I knew we couldn't do anything in the EU because all businesses were shackled. But we got free from those shackles, as Lord Gormless, our former Brexit negotiator, said. We've broken free from the shackles of the EU. But now we appear to be unleashed. And so once all these businesses are unleashed, I mean, our troubles will be over in no time, I'm sure. That does seem to be her basic economic policy, is to turbocharge and unleash businesses. And she is, as she says, I mean, her policy is to because everybody knows that she gets things done. We all know she gets things done. She's going to deliver, deliver, deliver. So we're saved, so we can all relax. This woman is just an empty-headed dimwit. You know, first impressions are very often right. And in the case of this woman, the more you see of her, the more you realise she's just a dimwit. She's just blowing in the wind. All she is interested in, just like Johnson, is her own personal career. It's all about her and her advancement. And you haven't got a clue. And I tell you what, we're going to have a government now which is going to be much more right-wing than Johnson's, and Johnson's haven't helped us with all the things that he did that have made our lives more difficult and more restricted and removing freedoms and so on. She's going to be much, much worse. I mean, just think of the people that are going to be in her government. It's said that Kwarteng's going to be her Chancellor. Patel, no doubt, she'll stay as Home Secretary, and she'll probably give him more powers. She'll be doing even more draconian things. We know that Truss wants to she's not very keen on the UHCR. She wants to because they stopped us sending all these people to Rwanda and dumping them there. There'll be Rees-Mogg because he's a supporter of her. There'll be Nadine Dorries in the cabinet as Culture Secretary. Maybe she gets some other job. Theresa Coffey, a woman who's blocking the release of reports which are critical of her department. And there's Suella Braverman. I mean, this is a woman who also wants to crack down on benefits cheats. She thinks that's all our problems, you see, are benefits cheats. That's why we're in such a mess. Benefits cheats, it's the EU, it's the pandemic, it's the war in Ukraine, which obviously there's a point there, and it's the last Labour government. But she'll sort it all out. Right now, I mean, the government seems to be drifting. We have all these crises, and yet we just seem to be drifting. We have a Prime Minister who's doing nothing. He's having a laugh. Johnson is having a laugh. He's now, it's the weekend, he'll be at Chequers. He's moved out of 10, at number 10 Downing Street Inn. He'll probably stay there till his time's out. He's having a laugh. And do you know what's going to happen? I'll tell you exactly what's going to happen. He's going to sit there knowing that everything's going to collapse. He knows what an immense crisis we're going into. And he's going to say afterwards, well, you got rid of me. If I'd stayed, everything would have been fine. And do you know what? All these Tory supporters, like a lot I saw interviewed recently, going into one of the hustings saying, oh, Boris is better. We should have kept Boris. So here we are, but heaven help us. And on top of this ghastly, dreadful cabinet that she's likely to appoint, it said that she's going to bring in Lord Gormless himself, Frost, who negotiated the Northern Ireland Protocol that is causing so much problem. He's a man who, I mean, he's, again, a complete and utter nobody, a man without any intellectual depth, just a complete fool. But he's so intoxicated with having become a little bit famous and having been a cabinet member for a while that he's forever spouting out his wisdom in the Daily Telegraph and so on, all this right-wing drivel that he writes. He actually gave evidence to a parliamentary committee. I mentioned this in a previous a former video, in which he said his job, he saw, was to guide the government in its general policy. Completely and utterly deluded, an absolute nobody like Truss. They are both completely and utterly deluded, but it said that she's going to be bringing him into the cabinet. And for economic advice, of course, you can always go to her friend Patrick Minford. It's the guy who said it didn't matter if we lost all our car factories. It didn't matter if farming collapsed. It wouldn't really matter. We'd do something else. Matthew Paris, a wonderful journalist in the Times this morning, describing Truss, said that Liz Truss is a planet-sized mass of overconfidence and ambition, teetering upon a pinhead of a political brain. I think that's perfect. So heaven help us. You know, when you make these videos, it's not very wise to make predictions because, you know, unless you take the video down, which I don't do, sooner or later you might get to it very silly. I said a long time ago, back last September, that Johnson wouldn't leave, and lots of people commented saying, oh yes, he's going to be there forever, and don't worry, the Tories will never get rid of him, he's a vote winner and all the rest of it. Well, he's gone. And my prediction with Truss is she isn't going to last. You know, I think most people are now beginning to realise, having seen her during this election campaign, most people are beginning to realise that she's completely empty. She is absolutely empty. And she'll be pushed around, and she's not going to be able to deal with the crises she's going to have to face. She says that as far as the EU is concerned, she's just going to override the Northern Ireland Protocol. At a time when we're going to be experiencing food shortages, she is going to enter into a trade war with the economic bloc that provides 40% of our food. How's that going to work out? And as far as the unions, I've just listed a whole load of unions, really powerful unions, who have, to a large extent, public support. She's going to bring in legislation to stop them striking. Oh, yes, no, she's going to put a stop to all that nonsense. She's going to say to Mick Lynch, no, I'm stopping you striking. Mick Lynch is going to say, what's he going to say? Oh, Liz Truss says we can't strike. Oh, back to work, lads. Completely deluded. Absolute madness. So she's taking on two massive, powerful enemies. And she's going to lose in both cases. So I think sooner or later, I mean, sooner really, she's going to get dumped or something is going to happen. I mean, I predicted before, I think there's going to be a lot of social unrest when people haven't got enough money to feed themselves and feed their children. But never mind, she's going to deliver, and she gets things done, so we will see. I did just want to say a little bit about the water companies, because they are, I mean, it is beyond a joke, isn't it? You know, since we left the EU, they've been able to pour all their sewage into the seas and the rivers whenever they wanted to. We've had a hot spell, haven't we? A drought for 2 months, and I think last week it rained a little bit. We had a couple of days rain. No, not even a couple of days rain. In London, I think we had about a few hours, 6 hours rain or something. That was so much that they were completely overwhelmed, all these water companies, that they had to start dumping all the sewage in the sea. And so, 30, 40, 50 different places are now having sewage dumped into the sea. And this is, I've said this before, it's just one of the consequences of selling off all your utilities. Think about water. It is something none of us can do without water. We all need what we're made of water. We need water. We need to be able to turn on the tap and get water out of it. And yet we've sold the suppliers of the water. 71% of them belong to foreigners. And as I said before, what the hell do they care? They're interested in making a profit. They're interested in their dividends. Let me read you something that was in the Guardian yesterday about the water companies and their bosses. The annual bonuses paid to water company executives rose by 20% in 2021, despite most of the firms failing to meet sewage pollution targets. You see, they can do anything. They've got monopolies. We have given monopolies to companies supplying something which is absolutely essential. It's like selling off air. Figures show on average executives received £100,000 in one-off payments on top of their salaries during a period in which foul water was being pumped for 2.7 million hours into England's rivers and swimming spots. The analysis of water companies' annual reports found that their bonus pool for executive now stands at more than £600,000 a company on average. In total, the 22 water bosses paid themselves £24.8 million, including £14.7 million in bonuses, benefits and incentives between 2021 and 2022, 2 years. And they're 71% foreign owned. I mean, we don't even know who owns some of them. One's a Chinese company registered in the Cayman Islands. What madness is it to sell off your water companies and then be unable to do anything about it? And it's the same with the electricity companies, same with the rail companies, same with the gas. Just sell it to foreigners because we needed a bit of money. It's like living in a house and saying, well, I'm not really earning enough money, I may just make it. I think I'll sell all my furniture and I'll rent it back. I mean, what's the sense in that? It's something you need, you sell it and then you rent it back. And you hope that if your furniture sort of starts falling to pieces that the people you sold it to will fix it, but they probably won't because they want to make money. It's a terrible state of affairs, and it's absolutely crazy. And as I said earlier, if all this sewage going into the waters is having a really, really bad effect upon all these seaside resorts who depend upon a limited season to make some money. But there you are. Liz will sort it all out. Now, I've just got one or two comments that I'll read you from last week. This is Tom Shepherd. He says, Liz Truss will be a great PM. I've already voted for her. We urgently need tax cuts, and she is making all the right noises on how to fix the problems in this country. A lot of the problems were caused by the last Labour government leaving the country in such a poor state, overspending, etc. You see, there's a man there so deluded to think that what happened 12 years ago is even partly responsible for the utter chaos that this country is in at the moment. And he believes her. He is stupid enough to believe this airheaded woman, this utter dimwit, is going to solve these problems because she stands up in her hustings and says, I get things done. Oh my God. Someone called Jean Phillips or Jean-Philippe, I don't know which. Of course there is corruption within politics. However, even when you start to talk, it's obvious that you are a product of the very same society, and you therefore are unable to see the wood for the trees. Politicians do not appear to have the appropriate solutions for today's problems, nor, unfortunately, do you. Very lofty. Jupiter, he's somebody who comments quite a lot. He's a silly man. Michael, still spouting rubbish about EU citizens all going home? In fact, there were 6 million applications for settled status. That's why young people cannot afford to buy houses. Their prospects have been ruined by open borders. Leftists like Michael. You see, this is a common misconception. Everybody says, oh yes, all these millions of EU citizens applied for citizenship before we left the EU. Well, over 45 years, millions of Europeans came and lived and worked here. Some went home, some didn't. Some got married, some had children. Likewise, millions of Brits went to the EU and again worked and probably got married and had children, all the rest of it. But when it came to Brexit, the government said, unless you change your passport or register as a British citizen, you'll be chucked out. You know, like the Windrush people chucked out because you can't prove that you lived here all this time and so on. And so everybody scrambled. All the European people over the last 45 years who'd come and lived and married and settled down here all applied for citizenship. But they're the ones, you see, they're the ones. If you've got a next door neighbour and it's an English guy and he's married to a French woman and they've been married for 30 years and they've got grown up children, she's the problem. She's the problem. Europeans come and taking our houses. Somebody called 1977 Ajax, he says, ridiculous straw man arguments in support of EU laws. You say we helped form these laws when in the EU, but somehow fail to mention that nearly 80% of the votes the UK made in reference to same were voted down by the rest of the EU. I mean, how is it possible to be so utterly stupid to watch a video and then put up a comment that is that inane? He's saying that 80% of the laws that we wanted to enact whilst we were members of the EU were voted down by the EU. I'm not going for the rest of it because it's just such similar garbage, but it does show the extraordinary level of ignorance. You know, it's because of ignorance and stupidity we're going to have an ignorant and stupid and utterly incompetent woman as Prime Minister at a time of, as I said before, the biggest, most serious crisis since the Second World War. Alan Davis says, the doomsayer seems to think there is some difference between the political parties that exist in the UK. If he understood the actuality, he would stop dribbling on and say something useful. No difference between the Labour Party and the Tories. No, it's all exactly the same. York Gilly says, not seen so much tripe since I was last in our local meat market. And as a northerner, I know tripe when I come across it. He also says, whoever this old geezer is, he needs a one-way ticket back to his old folks' home. Another character still bleating over Brexit and wanting a honest government. Good luck on that. And why the first past the post politics is wrong? Is it not enough to look back on the Tory Lib Dem pact not so long ago? The House of Commons is childish enough without another layer of MPs shouting across the chamber. I mean, just drivel. Anyway, that's all I'm going to say for today. The fiasco will carry on next week, I expect, with ever more right-wing policies being offered by Sunak in his desperation to try and get back. I'm surprised that neither of them has yet come up with capital punishment. It seems to be the thing that would get the support of all these Tory members. I do have just one last thing I want to finish on, though. I have a suggestion. I think this is not entirely flippant. I think this is a suggestion. I think, especially with our Labour authorities, where they have these great big pipes going out into the sea, pouring out all the sewage. You've probably seen pictures on the television. These masses of gallons and gallons of sewage. I think all these local authorities should put up, even if they stop using them in due course, certainly whilst they're there, but permanent markers. They should put up a sort of like a plaque on a sort of concrete plinth, and I think they should all be named after current Tory cabinet ministers. So you'd have the Patel sewage outlet, and you'd have the, I don't know, you'd have the Rees-Mogg sewage outlet, and, well, there are so many sewage outlets, you'd probably get the whole of the Tory party here, their names on them. But I think it would be a fitting tribute to the, we could see how appropriate it was as well, I think. So anyway, if you watch this far, thank you very much. And if you haven't already subscribed, I really would appreciate it. And if you mind hitting the like button. And until next time, bye for now.